Hey guys, Nebraska Farm here, and today we're talking about how to convince your parents that you need a knife. Now, boyhood just doesn't seem quite complete without that iconic pocket knife riding around the pocket. You know, there's a great deal of fun to be had with a pocket knife, you know, carving, and even if it doesn't look good, you know, there's just a lot of fun to be had with a pocket knife, and it's also it's also very useful, you know, there's always something that you need to cut, especially if you live on a farm, like I happen to, you know. Nebraska Farm boy. Anyways, or you might be wanting to get into carrying a knife for self-defense. Now that's another thing that I'm really big on, but you want to make sure you know exactly what you're getting into. So we're just going to assume that you've already looked into it. There's legal responsibilities, moral responsibilities, there's tactical responsibilities, all that stuff. I'm going to assume that you've looked into that. And now you are wanting to convince your parents that you need this knife, whether it's just for fun, whether it's just for work, whether it's just for whether it's for self-defense. You know, it's important that you have your parents on board before you go carrying around sharp steel. Now, it's important that we first establish why your parents aren't so sure about you having this knife. There could be several reasons. Maybe they're just having a hard time seeing you grow up. It's okay, they'll get over it. Maybe they're just, maybe they don't think you're responsible enough, and maybe they're right. In that case, you don't need a knife, but we'll get back to that in just a second. Or maybe they just don't know why you would need a knife, okay? All valid reasons, valid questions, and you should answer them accordingly. You shouldn't just assume that you know best. You should actually, stop and talk to your parents about this. And that's the first step to getting your parents to agree to letting you carry a knife. Go talk to them. 9 out of 10, I'll bet that any of you who are actually watching this video to learn something, you just haven't talked to your parents. You need to just go talk to them and say, hey, I want a knife, and they'll probably say, okay. Or maybe there'll be some, maybe they'll have some rules in place or something, but they'll probably say, okay. Okay, but if they don't, if they say maybe you aren't responsible enough, don't get all feisty, don't get all hurt. Maybe you aren't responsible enough. Either way, whether you're responsible enough or not, you're gonna have to prove that you're responsible. Don't just go argue. Don't become the lawyer. Don't argue that you're responsible, because that makes you look childish. Okay, be responsible. Prove you're responsible. You know, if you aren't responsible enough to take out the trash, you aren't responsible enough to carry a knife. Okay, that's the way it is. You know, prove that you're responsible. So if they don't think you're responsible, just prove it. Be a man. Okay. Now, of course, your parents might not understand why you want a finger chopping device like a pocket knife, and so you'll have to explain why you need a pocket knife. Okay, maybe you don't per se need a pocket knife, but maybe you could appeal to every boy needs a knife. That's okay. It's true. Every boy does need a knife, and I think that they'll probably be reasonable. But say they aren't, you could put yourself in a situation where you are working hard enough that you need to use a knife. You know, there's ways around this. You know, basically the real reason is probably they don't think you're responsible. Really, it all boils down to proving that you're responsible, and then it doesn't really matter why you want the knife. You aren't gonna like chop your finger off with it, or chop anyone else's finger off with it for that matter. And so I don't see why they wouldn't let you have a knife. Now, for all you guys wanting to get into self-defense, we sometimes like to carry big knives, especially if you're into knife throwing like me. Just a hint for you, starting out small is really a great idea. Starting out with like a 3.5-inch folder for self-defense, great idea. Doesn't always go over well if you walk into your mom's kitchen with a knife stuck in your waistband that's bigger than her kitchen knife. You know, just start out small, work your way up to whatever you want to. If that's an issue. If it's not an issue, then don't worry about it. I remember when I got my first pocket knife, I wanted it so bad I was terrified Dad would say no, and I hemmed and hawed and, paced back and forth, and finally I was like, hey Dad, can I have this knife? And he's like, sure, don't chop your finger off with it or I'll take it away. You know, and that was it, and I was like, okay, now I got a knife. And look at me now, I've got knives and knives and knives and knives, but it's 9 out of 10 you just need to ask. And in case you were wondering, I never did chop my finger off, so the knife never got taken away. But it got lost by my sister. Anyway, she now has her own knife to lose, but I bought her it for $10. I paid $10 for that. Alright guys, I'm sorry, you guys are just gonna have to go talk to your parents, because I gotta go talk to my sister. I can't have her losing that knife. I paid $10 for it. Nebraska Farm Boy here. We will see you next time.